Hello, welcome back to this basic 3D Studio Max tutorial. In the previous tutorials we created a scene in 3 dimensions and gave it textures in the material editor and changed the render to a mental ray renderer. So we've got some great details coming out here now in our render. What we want to do now is we want to take this a little bit further and get it looking a bit more realistic and a bit nicer. Okay. So, what we're going to do is first I want to have a reference image to see where we've started in this image and where we're going to end up. So I'm going to click this little button here which clones a window of what my current render. So I now have a copy of this so I can change things and re-render, and I've still got this to refer back to. So I'm just going to drag this off here. It's still on, I've still got it open, you just can't see it. Okay, so what I'm going to look at, if I just bring it back actually, you can see that the shadows are very harsh and there's no softness to them, there's no realism to them. So I'm just going to start bringing a bit more realism into the shadows. In the create and in the lighting section that I'm already in, you might not be, so if you're in this the primitives mode, just click on the light and change to standard lighting. I'm going to bring in a skylight, so just click on the skylight. This is not a click and drag to create, it's just a single click. The drag sort of dictates where it's going to be in the scene. You just need one. As soon as you've created it, click Q to get your select mode, so you're not going to create extra ones by mistake. I've done that many times. I want to try and make it so you don't have that same problem. If I just click render, you can see suddenly the scene is a lot brighter for a start. That's because we've essentially doubled, if you like, the amount of light coming into the scene. If I bring back this one so you can compare and contrast, so switching between the two, you can see it's a lot brighter. One thing to note, look at around the base of this teapot, how there's no shadowing in front of the teapot at all, but here you've got this very nice soft shadowing. This is created where the light is coming from multiple directions instead of just one. So this is simulating a sun basically, but it's really good for creating a nice, soft, more realistic lighting environment. But now let's look at this shadow behind it. This shadow is really, really harsh. It looks like it's being hit with a spotlight, which essentially it is. Let's see about how we're going to correct that. I'm just going to cross this render window out and drag this out of the way. Okay, I want to select my my spotlight now to change some of its settings. To do that, I'm not going to come out. I could come out of this window and select it up here, but I want to stay focused on this window here. So I'm going to go into Tools and I'm going to click on the Light Lister. So this shows all the lights I have in the scene. At the moment, it's got this the skylight and it's got the mental ray area spot. I'm going to click this little button here, and it selects my spotlight for me. Now I can get rid of that. So that's a quick little tip on how to select your light really, really quickly. Now one thing I'm going to do first is I'm just going to go into Spotlight Parameters, and I'm just going to turn this hotspot / beam right up. I'll just come out of this and give you a 4-window display so you can see what's happening. As I push the hotspot beam up, you can see it's widening the angle of this light, making it broader and broader. If I push it right up, it makes it almost to 180 degrees, so it's the way the light comes out, it's spread evenly across the whole scene now. So it's more like a directional light where all the beams are parallel, like a distant source of light, like the sun, for example. The next thing I'm going to do, scrolling down, is I'm going to change how the shadows work. In Area Light Parameters, I'm going to change the type to disk. Now what this does, it says how big the light source is in sort of a physical way. So if I go into here and I turn up the radius to, let's set it up to 20 and see what it looks like. Let's do a render. So there you can see the light, the shadow is now softer. It's got a fuzzy edge. Compare it to this, I'll just wait till it finishes rendering. There you go. Compared to this image here, look how different it is. This harsh, sharp edge compared to this nice, soft edge. You can play around with that setting and set it to higher or lower to get a look that you like. I kind of like how this looks, to be honest. I'm going to leave it at this. I'll round it off though to a nice 20 centimeters. Just so you know, I've got my scene set up with centimeters as my default unit. But you might want to have it as a different thing if you're based in the US. You might want to be in inches. By default, it is set up with inches. If you click on Customize and go into Unit Setup, you can change your display unit, but you will also need to change your system unit setup to the system you want. Okay. So we've got the nice soft shadow. The last thing I want to do now is bring in some nice reflections. And the thing we're going to do to generate this is use what's known as a HDRI light probe. Now, this is where this website that I showed you way back in the first tutorial sets out. Light probes are a 3D environment that are wrapped around a sphere. So you can see here in Photoshop, we've got this light this light probe that has been created. I'll just zoom out a bit. Now, HDR light probe is not. If you imagine a normal photo represents color. So you've got color from you've got blues, you've got greys, you've got blacks, you've got reds, you've got whites. In a HDRI light probe, you've got color and you have values of light. The way to see this, if I went into image and adjustments to adjust the exposure, I can turn this down and up. You can see that there's different values of light. So if I were to turn this down, you can see that the brightest object by far is that little hot spot of the sun in the distance. Even when the exposure is really low, you can still see it. And as I increase the exposure, you can see it's brighter and brighter and brighter. Now, I'm not just making the image lighter or darker, it's actually a change in lighting values. At the default setting of about 0, I'll get it. That'll do. You can kind of see some of the detail under here in this under the balcony. Let me just get a bit closer in so you can see with more detail. I'll just cancel that. There we go. So let's have a look under this balcony here. An image, adjustments, exposure. Now, look how much more is visible under there by turning up this exposure. So there's a lot of detail in here that is not just about colour. There is lighting information as well, and we can use that lighting information to create much more realistic scenes within 3D Studio Max with very little effort. Okay, so you can see what you've got here is you want to download the rectangular ones on the left, not the light probes on the right, and you can get a basic idea that the author of this site has very kindly done renders of teapots. You'll see a lot of those, as I said, to show you how the different light probes work. So you can see that they're different colours, the light's coming from different directions and different intensities, and you're getting very, very different shadows. So if I just minimise that and back in 3D Studio Max, let's have a look at how we're going to set that up. Go into Rendering and Environment. So I want to create an environment now. I want to click on this button that says None, select a bitmap, and I'm going to navigate to where I've got my light probe saved, which is in this 3ds Max Basics folder and Textures. I'm going to select this. This is one I've created, HDRI Alien Ship, and just click Open. Now what you'll see here is you've got quite a lot of slides and things going on. Can look a bit scary. The things you need to remember is set it to real pixels 32 bpp, that's bits per pixel, and you want to control the image with this red line here. The basic way I think of it is the further right that line is, the darker the image is, and the further left, the brighter the image is. So I'm going to set it just to the right, there we go, of that there, of this little peak there. I just control it using these two sliders here, which is very useful. Just click OK. Okay, and well, let's do a render, see what it looks like. I'm going to save out a clone of this, so we've got a reference and render. Now, as it's rendering and it's coming, and the image is coming in, you can see there's already a difference to how this looks. It takes a little bit longer to render because there's a bit more to calculate. But when it's done, look at these reflections in the teapot and compare it in sort of detail to this one. You can see it's quite a bit different, and that's a good thing. But it's not quite right. If I bring back up my material editor, I'm going to do something which is, you might think is a little fancy now. I'm going to grab this texture and I'm going to drag it into my material editor as an instance. It's quite important that you do it as an instance. You can see I've got it there. What I'm going to do is I want this to be a sphere that wraps around the environment, so the light's coming from all the different directions. So I need to change it from a screen mapping to a spherical environment mapping. Okay, let's re-render that and have a look what we've got. Save out that clone and render again. Again, this will increase the render time that you're dealing with because there's more information for your computer to calculate. But the results, in my opinion, are well worth it. There we go, that's rendered now. Now you can see the difference in that. You've got this, in this one the reflections look slightly odd, they look slightly almost skewed, whereas in this one it looks as you would expect a reflection to look when it's wrapping around that 3D surface, and that's all how to do with how the texture is mapping on to the environment there. Now the reason you brought this texture in as an instance, because I can now change this texture here and it automatically changes the texture in here. What I can also do is, if I just get rid of these, if I'm in select mode and select my skylight, if you can't select it straight off, just do a drag around it, and then you've got two entities selected, and I can alt click on what I know was the other thing I selected, which was this plane, and it selects the light. Or you can use the light lister. So now I'm going to, in this sky color, in this map, I'm going to drag my texture into there. Now this is going to make, again as an instance, now this is going to make quite a difference to the scene. If we start off, this is before any HDRI is applied. Look at the colour of the scene there, of the lighting. Now let's render again. This is where the change starts to come. The lighting information of the light probe is very orange. It's very warm, and you can see that coming through in the lighting of this scene. It's very, very orange. So the lighting has changed. So this texture here has a great deal of influence over the look of your scene. If you're not sure of how much it has, let's change that texture. I'm going to select. Now I'm going to select this one here. It looks very dark there, but we'll find a good balance here. So I'm going to just drag that down. I'm going to, again, I like going just in front of this nice high peak here. Click OK, and you can see that it looks like the inside of a warehouse, basically. One thing to watch when you're replacing the texture, sometimes it resets to screen, so you need to put it back to spherical environment, or you'll get some crazy results when you render. So with that in place, let's re-render. So you can see the change straight away. We've lost all the warmth of that shot. It's now become a much colder, much harsher scene because it's lit as if it's on the inside of a warehouse. The beauty of this HDRI, you can see all the windows in the reflection there, which is a really nice little touch. Okay, let's change it again. Let's see what else we can come up with. Select bitmap, and so this setting, this shot is the one of the beach, the sun on by the beach. Again, push that up, just set it to there. Click OK. This will give you a preview of roughly how bright it's going to be. Aha. Now this is what I was warning you about. See how the reflections just look like the image is pasted straight on top of everything. That's what happens when you have when it's reset look to screen there. So if I reset that again to spherical environment and then render again, there we go. You can get, this has now got a little bit more warmth to it. The lighting is more severe, it's more direct, so it's a little bit harsher. So yeah, I'm going to go back to my the one I used originally, which was the one I'd created, which is the inside of a lecture hall at a university. Just tweak that. Okay. If you look at this and you're thinking it's looking a little bit too bright, you can just go in, back in, and then open the same file, push it further to the right to just darken it down a bit. It's changed to screen mode, change it back to spherical, and just make subtle adjustments there. Okay, so now we're pretty much at the stage that I wanted to get to in this tutorial. We've created a teapot, we've created the environment, we've set up some nice lighting solutions, so everything's looking pretty good. I might do a few little tweaks here. Everything, because of the lighting, everything is looking very, very orange, because the wood's orange and the teapot's orange, so the reflections in here are all orange and the HDRI is orange. So let's make a couple of tweaks. First thing I want to do is I want to really position this teapot nicely in the shot so it's nicely composed. I'm going to press Shift and F. That brings up a frame that shows exactly what will be visible in my render. So now if I start navigating and dragging around, another little keyboard shortcut, if you press the right Alt key and middle mouse drag, you've got some finer control on the zoom there. Just drag that around a bit. You might want to rotate your teapot into a slightly better position. There we go, that'll do. If you want to get an idea of how your shadows are looking, you can turn on Enable Hardware Shading, and then back in that menu, Enable Shadows, and it shows you roughly where your shadows are going to appear. So that's looking pretty nice. Back in the Material Editor, I'm just going to give that, let's see, I'll go opposite of the red is the blue, so that often works quite well. I'll give it a slight turquoise hint there and lighten it up a bit. Sky blue, excellent. And you know, you could go in and slightly change the colour of the wood. Maybe just move it slightly paler. Okay. And you know, you can go in and change the colour of your tiles, so instead of so this is an interesting thing. I'm still in the texture of the tiles. To get back to the root material, I'm going to use this go to parent, and it goes back to the main texture. So now I can change the colour and give it sort of a nice greeny look. Let's make that really pale green though. Maybe not quite that pale. And you know, I've changed a few settings now. Let's see what the render looks like. See how much longer this render is taking now. We've got a lot more settings on. There's a lot of reflection going on and all kinds of stuff. This isn't looking too bad at all now though. It's looking pretty realistic. You know, you can almost believe that that's a teapot sat there. You've got some nice soft shadows going on if I can get my teeth in. So it's looking pretty good. There's one last thing I'm going to take care of. Well, there's two last things I'm going to take care of. It's a bit overexposed here. This is a bit too bright. That's mainly due to the spotlight being quite bright. So I'm just going to go into my tools and my light lister, select my area spot, and up in the intensity, color, and attenuation, I'm just going to turn this down to 0.7, so it's not quite as bright there. I'm also going to make my render a higher quality render. So I'm going to go into Renderer, and then this sampling quality, samples per pixel, I'm going to turn this up to 1 as the minimum number of samples, and to 16 as the maximum. So that's basically, it's making your computer and your renderer do finer work, and it's much more refined on the image when it's working. So you render again, it's going to take a little bit longer, but what the result will be is a much cleaner, sharper image with less artifacting going on, so it looks less grainy and less pixely, and you'll get a more realistic result. So just to cover everything we've looked at in this set of tutorials, we've looked at how to navigate in 3D Studio Max and use the various 3D windows. We've looked at how to create some basic geometry in terms of primitives, so we created a couple of planes and a teapot. We also looked at how to manipulate those in terms of scale, in position and rotation. We then looked at adding some textures to the scene and changing the render to a mental render, and then adding lighting into the scene and shadows into the scene to get this real nice look here. The final stage was quite an advanced stage, was introducing a HDRI light probe to add these really realistic reflections that we're getting in the teapot. And if we take a look at the final result that we've got here, I'm really happy with this, and I really hope that the results that you're getting are looking something like this, because if they are, you've done a really good job and you've created something in 3D that looks pretty darn realistic. Finally, my name has been Alex P. Twigg. We'll be doing some more tutorials in the future, and I hope you've got some time to check it out. Thank you very much for your time, and goodbye.